So today is our first session of the Rakfav Speaker Series. I am so honored to host Marko Pogačnik and David Ness here with us today. They are Rakfav's feature artists in collaboration with the Marinko Sudak Foundation, based in Croatia. So Marko Pogačnik and David Ness are part of the OHO Group, a Slovenian conceptual Neo-Avant-Garde group, which was active in various phases from 1962 to 1971. The core, the founding member of the OHO Group, was Marko, and then later on, David Ness joined the OHO Group. So Marko was born in 1944 in Kranj, graduated in sculpture at the Academy of Fine and Arts Design in Ljubljana. David graduated from the Academy of Fine Arts and Design as well, and joined the OHO Group in 1968 in its second phase. So I would like to begin with the questions. So this is Marko and this is David, and they are our featured artists this year, so you will be able to see their sculptures and installations around the site. So the first question is, could you please tell us more about the emergence of the OHO Group?
Are we allowed to speak now? Yeah. Yeah, my name is Marko, and in the beginning it was my inspiration. In 1962, I felt that something new is coming. This was 60 years ago, that something new is coming, and at that time we were living in a communist state, the former Yugoslavia. And for us young people, it was really difficult to express who we are and what we feel inwardly. So I was delighted by the modern art and how free the expression. And so I thought, this is the way how we cannot go against the communist ideology, but we can, through art, start something completely new. We started with a small group in my hometown, Kranj, and it was very difficult in the beginning. I was thrown out of the gymnasium. I had police interrogations and so on. But finally we established a strong group, strong enough. We were working with films, with performances, and with what is called visual poetry. We did little books, and yes, we emerged as a new generation of artists.
Yeah, so after a few years of your work with the OHO Group, I believe David joined later on. So how did you end up joining the OHO Group, and what kind of work have you guys done together as part of the group?
Maybe we need to explain this name, OHO. Yeah, would you? No. OHO means in Slovenian language exclamation of surprise, like, oh, what is this? So it is a method that we developed. We realized that the modern human beings are following a certain tracks that this civilization has created, and we tried to establish. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot.
technology.
Excuse me. So we developed such a model to create artworks that people would be surprised to see. If a human being is surprised, so for a moment it loses the track, the line that is following, and says, "Oh, what is this?" And yeah. So, for example, I was doing artwork on the matches to make fire. So I printed little drawings that were put on the matches, and we sold them on the street for the same little money, so that people would be surprised. Oh, art on the matches, matches are to make fire. No. It could be also exhibition place. So, yeah.
And then you joined the group later on.
Yes, I came to Ljubljana in Slovenia in 1967 to study art and also to escape the Vietnam War, because I was of the age that I could have been drafted into the military, and I didn't believe in the war. I didn't want to go fight in the war. So for me, it was like an insurance policy to be in Slovenia in case I ever got drafted. My number was never called up, so I never had that problem, but anyway, I ended up in Slovenia, and I went to the art academy there. And for the first year in the academy, it was a very traditional European academy. We just drew plaster casts, just drawings. It was tedious, disciplined work, and I found it really boring. But at the same time, I met a guy named Milenko Matanovic, who was a member of Group OHO. And Milenko and I became good friends, and he invited me to collaborate with the group. And so from then on, we worked on a number of projects together. We worked on happenings. A happening is a 60s term for a spontaneous event that occurs in public, a very unstructured sort of event. And we worked on happenings in the park, in the city park. We worked on various sculptural installation projects. Our collaboration eventually grew to include myself, Milenko, András Šalamun, and his brother Tomáš, who is a very well-known Slovenian poet. So at this time, Marko was in the army. So the group sort of took on a new phase with the four of us. And we explored certain currents such as conceptual art, which were happening in Western Europe at that time, arte povera, which is happening in Italy at that time, process art, fluxus art. So we were interested in all these new currents that were emerging from Western Europe and from America, but giving them our own sort of interpretation. So we were really open to all sorts of experimental work. And the whole purpose of our collaboration was to expand the boundaries of traditional art beyond traditional painting, sculpture. We wanted to merge different media together. We worked in multimedia, we made films, we performed actions like happenings. We would set up sculptures in the park and set them up for an hour or two, take photos of them to document them, and then we would take them down. And eventually we did some projects in nature called the summer projects, where we went out into the Slovenian landscape, and I set up mirrors. My friend Milenko Matanovic did some installations with string in a wheat field where he pulled the strings so the wheat would bend. Very subtle interventions in nature. And then we would document them with photos. That was the only proof that these temporary actions had occurred. So it was very process-oriented. It involved the action of making it. It was almost like performance art. The actual object, the art object, was not the important thing. It was the process of making the work that was important for us.
So I actually didn't know that when you joined the OHO Group, you were at the military. So have you guys ever had the chance to work together eventually? And could you maybe like tell us about one work that you guys worked together on?
Go ahead, Marko. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. The original idea was how could be life and art connected, so that the art would not be separate as something, cultural events or objects, but how to merge with life. So we did happenings, as David said, in town. For example, we invited people to go through the streets of Ljubljana, and one person has a whistle. And in the moment when the whistle was sound,
When the whistle was blown.
Yeah. All people had to stand in the position they were. So we were a group of maybe 50 people were standing in the middle of the street, not moving. And when the whistle was blown again, so we go on. And so, like this, in rhythm. So that, and people were walking there, the streets, normally. You know, there was a kind of saying, yes, this is, we move, but also there is time to get in and be in peace and stand. You know, yeah. So this eventually led us, as David said, to work in nature with these subtle installations, like I was working with the elements, water and air and fire and earth, in different combinations, inviting them people to go, like in a forest. We said there in the forest, that day, that hour, come, look. It was something to be seen, and then it was erased again. So it was a very spontaneous and very not exhibitions, not static, life.
Yeah, I think this is a great transition to, talking about nature. It seems that a lot of the work that OHO Group has previously done relates to nature and, I guess, interacting with the surrounding environment. And of course, we can't not talk about the amazing 2 installations that we have at our festival. So we are really privileged to have one permanent installation done by Marko, which you can find in front of the mosque on Zone B. And we have David's work in Beit 1. Unfortunately, it won't be permanent, but it will be here for the next month. So first, David, could you maybe tell us a little bit more about the work, Zoology of Absence?
Yes, the work, Zoology of Absence, the title describes the work in the sense that it's a collection of images of animals that are endangered of extinction. And each of the animals that is hanging from the ceiling when you walk into the room is a species that could go extinct very soon, within the next few years, if humans do not take some kind of action to protect them. So the title relates to, I thought, what would a zoologist be studying in 100 years? They would be studying absent species that are no longer there. So I basically, I represent the skeleton of many of the mammals and fish. And of course, the insects that I show have exoskeletons, so I just depicted the entire insect. But I'm really concerned about this issue. I have to do artwork about something that really moves me emotionally. And I love animals, and for me, I'm very moved by the thought that wild animals could be extinct in a few years. In fact, some biologists are saying that at the end of the century, 1 million wild species could go extinct. So we're really in the middle of a crisis, or in terms of the insects, they call it the insect apocalypse, because in Europe, in the last few years, 40% of the insect populations have died off, which is really dramatic. And the reason we should be concerned about this is because insects are pollinators. They pollinate the crops. Honeybees are one of these insects that is endangered, actually. If the insects vanish, then the birds have nothing to eat. They could vanish as well, and the whole ecosystem could collapse, and this will eventually affect humans as well. So for me, the installation is sort of a gentle form of activism. I want to remind people about this situation in a gentle kind of way that does not intimidate people, but just make them aware that the world would be a lot more depressing place if we didn't have wild animals to admire.
Yeah, for sure. And I think if you actually visit the installation, you can see some animals that are native to this region as well.
Yeah, there's a Arabian leopard and an Arabian wild goat. As you walk in the door, you'll see them hanging there.
Yeah, so it's actually like when I saw it, it was really like a powerful. I felt like it was a very powerful piece because it looks kind of pretty. Like if you go in, because you made it work with the shadows. But I think if you actually like think about it, it's true. Like it has this feeling of. I think you described it to me like when you walk around the space, the shadows move like ghosts.
Yes, the light that shines through the mylar sheets projects light forms as well as shadows, so they're intended to be like ghosts. And you're right, I want to first draw people in with the beauty of animals, because their skeletal forms are so beautiful, but then maybe once your eye has been drawn in, you'll start thinking about what you're looking at.
Yeah, and then of course Marko, your permanent piece, Portal of Peace. It consists of 33 rocks from Ras Al Khaimah, native to the region. So what does that symbolize? And maybe if you can tell us a bit about the cosmogram of the rocks.
This work that you can see close to the mosque is, as you say, composed of stones. It goes back to my work that I call lithopuncture. It is like, at the beginning of the 80s, I was looking for a way how practically through the art could be possible to confront the very difficult ecological situation that the modern civilization is producing. I had the idea that the alternative forms of healing that were developed in the last 100 years, 200 years, like acupuncture, could be used not for the human body, but for the body of the earth. So I did some experiments in the beginning of the 80s, and I saw that this works well because the earth has a kind of network like human nerves, also blood veins, and then we have also acupuncture meridians, which means energetic, vital energy flows, and so has also the earth, these meridians, acupuncture meridians or lines. I had to develop a sensibility that needs, so that I could feel that, let's say, a line, what is in English called ley line or acupuncture meridian, is somewhere blocked because there happened something, like maybe a road just crossed that meridian, or there is a bunch of these meridians where a battle was in the past, where people suffered and were killed, and so, which makes the ground to freeze, is like frozen, and the energy does not flow. Even if it happens long ago, still it is there, this blockade. And it is something that is not good for nature, not for the earth, and not for the human culture. I started I started with this work. First, I was invited to some places in Germany in the 80s, where I could prove my work was accompanied with scientific research about the species that were extinct, like in plants returning to place, or how good the trees are being grounded. It is possible. So it was clear that it was a park in Germany where with my wife Marko, we carved over 3 years 24 stones to position in certain points. But now I don't use just the acupuncture method, but I combine it with what is called homeopathy, which means healing through information. So to bring in information, we are carving what I call cosmograms, science. They are in a circle, and they are created always for a specific place and purpose, so that we like communicate to the place what is the problem and how can be solved, or how to bring movement again to the place. So there is working energy, working on the meridians, combined with consciousness, with information. So this work succeeded after 3 years, and the park that was endangered by coal mining in vicinity regenerated, and I wrote a book about this in German, and people started to read and get interested. So since then, the last 40 years, I am doing this kind of work, also in all continents except Australia. Now,
So for the one that we have here, so is there a reason why you chose peace as the cosmogram?
Here is something different. Here is no cosmograms carved, but the form, how the stones are positioned, is a cosmogram, is a glyph, like hieroglyph, telling something, and it is about peace. I developed a workshop on peace. Like I explored the certain reasons how conflicts come into being, be it on personal level, but also on international level. There are always at the back of conflict or wars, there are certain patterns that push towards conflict. So I did then a workshop to confront all these certain reasons for conflict. I did this in many capitals of the world, also in Moscow and in London and in Berlin and Munich and so on, New York, Jerusalem, and so the theme of peace is something, but not, again, not symbolic, but how to remove the causes for the conflicts to come, or to give impulses through rituals. I worked in these workshops, but here I work with stones. I position stones in a certain form, which resembles of peace, bird of peace, the Tao, like with two wings and the peak going forward. But in effect, it is also a cosmogram. It is what I call it the door of peace, because there is a door, a circle, half circle, and from there comes an impulse, a line of impulse going out into the world. And because each stone is properly tuned to the place, so they produce, and the power of peace is inherent in this design. So the stones with billions of crystals, they take in this power to bring peace, and they radiate. So it is a kind of contribution to peace.
Yeah, if you haven't had the chance to take a look at it, you really should, because they were really each and every rocks are from and native to Ras Al Khaimah, and definitely was a lot of work. Marko just came, I think, like a week ago, right, around like 10 days ago, and it was a big project that took around like 3 days to put in all the rocks, and because they're very dense and heavy as well. But it's really, I think, very powerful and very interesting as well. And yesterday, Marko was also leading workshops on his cosmograms to communicate with nature and the rocks that are present in our site. It is getting quite chilly, so maybe we'll just wrap it up. But before we wrap it up, are there any last words that both of you would like to share?
I would just like to say that it was a really great experience being here in UAE. It was my first time being here, and I was really